Mr. Wong Ting Kwang. I nominate you. I second. I accept the nomination. Any others, please? No? Then, yes, there's a seconder. Okay. If there are no other nominations, then thank you very much for your support. Do we need a deputy chairman? No? Then can we invite the administration to join us now? Good morning. Good morning. From the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, we have Ms. Mabel Chen, Deputy Secretary, Ms. Shirley Kwan, Principal Assistant Secretary, and from the Rating and Valuation Department we have Mr. Ipak Kwong, Assistant Commissioner, and from the DFJ, Ms. Monica Law. Mabel, over to you. Thank you, Chairman. Members, good morning. The rate exemption order 2014, well, we have got a paper to brief members on the background. I will just say a few words and leave more time for members to ask questions. In this year's budget, the FS announced some one-off relief measures amounting to $20 billion revenue forgone. So the the rates waiver is among one of the one-off relief measures involving $6.1 billion. Every year, when these measures are formulated, the FS would consider the economic outlook for the next financial year and also the situation in the external environment and also the fiscal position of the government in the current year, and also consider the needs of the community in making a decision, and appropriate adjustments will be made year on year. This year, our proposal is to waive rates for the first 2 quarters of 2014-15, subject to a ceiling of $1,500 per tenement per quarter. In these 2 quarters, all rate payers will be eligible to a waiver of up to $1,500 per quarter. And according to the R&D department, about 1.1 million properties can benefit. And in these 2 quarters, about 73% of rate payers will not have to pay any rates. The order was gazetted on the 26th of February, and we hope that it can take effect on the 1st of April, and that is the start of the first quarter, so that the relief measure can be reflected in the rates bill for the first quarter. And we propose to submit this to the Council for scrutiny on the 19th of March. Thank you. Well, there have been rates waiver in the past few years, and how is this year different from previous years? Thank you. Yes, when we considered one-off relief measures from time to time, we did consider rates waiver. Well, since the handover in 1997, in the past decade or so, we have given similar waivers. and that can be the form of a waiver in 1 quarter, 2 quarters, or even all 4 quarters. The difference between this year and the last is we only offer the waiver in the first 2 quarters of the year and not all 4. However, the ceiling is still $1,500 per quarter, which is the same as the concession last year. Ms. Sit-ho, I have just a very simple opinion. I welcome the government's concession for property owners. However, if you keep it to only 2 quarters, subject to a ceiling of $1,500 per tenement per quarter, then flat owners of smaller tenements will not be able to enjoy in full the waiver. Now, because the flat size is too small, and for a flat that is 800 square feet, then the owner will be able to enjoy the full amount. Now, since you're already giving relief to the community, why don't you do it better? The ceiling should be $3,000. However, the number of quarters can be extended from 2 to 3 to 4, I mean. So once the ceiling is hit, then for the ratepayer will have to pay rates in the 3rd and 4th quarters. But for flat owners of smaller property size, well, they will still be eligible to claim the balance in the 3rd and 4th quarters, so that small property owners that is not so affluent property owners will still be able to benefit, because the way you implement it is such that the more affluent class will benefit more and the grassroots less. Well, since you are handing out goodies, why don't you benefit those who are in need more? So please introduce an amendment so that in the interpretation section you can extend the eligibility period to 4 quarters, subject to a ceiling of $3,000 in total. Now, you said that if in the current arrangement there will be $6.1 billion forgone. What if you extend it to 4 quarters? And you talk about 73% of rate payers not requiring to pay rates. So what are the percentage of rate payers that cannot enjoy the full amount? All right. Deputy Secretary. Thank you, Ms. Sit-ho, for your proposals and comments. In the meeting with the Council on Special Finance Committee, well, we heard similar comments, and we have done some analysis. If my understanding is correct, the proposal is to cap the benefit to $3,000. That means the ceiling for each quarter is $750 per quarter. Now we have a look at our database with the RVD. And if we adopt this model, the amount of public revenue forgone will be another $2.1 billion. That is, in total, $8.2 billion of public revenue will be forgone. The rationale is simple. Now, if it is $1,500 per quarter in 2 quarters, then for properties where the valuation is in the medium and high value, then they will be able to enjoy the concession in full. Ms. Sit-ho is concerned about the needs of grassroots. Now, we have got both residential and non-residential properties, so we do not just consider the needs of grassroots. For property of medium high value, well, many of them are commercial premises. They may be flatted factories and offices and also shops, and these are the middle class we want to benefit. So if we make it $750 per quarter for 4 quarters, then the extra revenue forgone will ensure that property owners of smaller flat size will benefit more. But for the upper sector, the impact would be minimum. In fact, these property owners may benefit less. And we should not just single out the rates waiver. We have got other relief measures such as tax rebate and also one-off relief measures for PRH tenants and also extra CSSA payments. So I think the way we propose it will make it fairer and will ensure that ratepayers will be able to enjoy more. I fail to see why those in the upper and higher sector would get less, because the ceiling would just be the same, $3,000, whether it be 2 quarters or 4 quarters. So I fail to understand this conclusion. And secondly, now, for grassroots property owners, even if you give them 1 month of rent free in rental of PRH, they cannot benefit because they are not PRH tenants. And for CSSA recipients, they cannot benefit. So we're talking about the bottom sector of the sandwich class. They suffer most. I know the government will have to spend another $2.1 billion, but since you are giving out concessions, you should give them to those who are in need, who has the greatest need. Why is it that for the grassroots they can only get 1,000 or so? For those in the middle and upper sectors, they can get the amount in full? Ms. Chen? We have considered the economic situation in the community. It has improved compared with what it was a few years ago, and we also see a continued easing in inflation because we see some improvement in imported inflation and also rental increases. So in the past few years, we considered inflationary pressure, and we also have to consider the government's fiscal position. And we also have to consider the series of measures announced by the CE in his policy address, and that cost the government more than $20 billion. So we have considered recurrent expenditure and also one-off relief measures, and we have to strike a balance. And if we spread concession into 4 quarters, then it will be rather costly, because rates is a broad-based tax involving many properties. So it is quite an expensive or costly one-off relief measure. We want to cover more properties, and we also have to strike a balance with the resources involved. All right, you have to answer this question. When you hand out goodies, do you plan to give more to those who are more affluent or those who are less? Even though you will keep the revenue forgone at $6 billion, you have to ensure that the grassroots property owners can benefit more than the luxury flat owners. Mr. Gary Chen, we do object to the waiving of rates as a one-off relief measure. That's our general position. And I think this is one of the worst measures proposed by the government. It cannot achieve your policy objective. You say here that the one-off relief measures is to help members of the public to tie over the current financial difficulties. Yes, for property owners of smaller tenements, indeed, they can have some relief, but usually the outcome is returning rich to the rich.
We've asked about the amount of wave returned from the largest organization, it says that for the year 2012 to 13, the one that received the biggest amount of rates refunded owns over 90 million units. So it's about $90 million. So you have given $90 million to the one that gets the biggest refund. You have set a ceiling for each tenement per quarter. It's set as 1,500. You know why? We all know. It's because they don't want to refund too much. Then why don't you set the ceiling at the number of units owned by one single owner? Say well, in this way, if you own 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000 units, you still get the rates refunded. So why not consider Ms. Sidho's proposal that is subject to $3,000 spread over 4 quarters for 2012 and 13 for the top 10 owners? They together get about $200 million. So I'd like to get some information about the rates refunded to the top 100 biggest owners. I want the number of flats they own and the rates waived. Yes, the relief measures help people, but at the same time it helps a big group of people who don't need the relief measures to help them cope with short-term financial pressure. Ms. Chan. Thank you for the question. Well, when we consider whether to have the relief measure in the form of waivers, we consider whether we will consider setting a limit on the number of flats owned by a single owner. This proposal was put forward in the past. According to the Rates and Valuation Department, the RVD, they use tenements as a unit when charging rates, and not whether the person who pays the rate is an agent, a tenant, or an owner. If we are to determine on the basis of owners and or the number of flats owned, we will have to first clarify whether that person is an owner, agent, or a tenant. And we also have to find out whether the tenement is held in joint name or held in the name of another person. This poses great difficulties and will cause controversy. Mr. Chan also mentioned a point. He asked for information. As usual, we will supply the information like we did in the past. When it comes to companies owning a large number of, say, shops, they may register in the name of rates payer. They may own a lot of shops in one single building. Or if they own a number of flats in a public housing building, it may be a public organization or an owner in the private sector. If we impose a limitation on the number of owners, it will not benefit tenants themselves. We have to consider how it can benefit the tenant if we waive the rates. The RVD conducted surveys on tenancy agreements. Members are concerned about the top 10 public organizations or private owners. We see that over 80% of the tenancy agreements excludes rates. In other words, the tenant will have to pay rates. From the point of a management of properties, the tenant will pay on behalf of the owner. But when it comes to rates waived, this will be deducted from the this will be taken off from the amount paid by the tenant. Have you done any research? In a recent research, over 85% of the top 10 owners do not include rates in the tenancy agreement. Ms. Chen Yin-han, I don't object to this. Well, sometimes rates are included, sometimes not, but the valuation of rates is to reflect the value of the property. But we have to find out how to help those who have nothing. Say, for example, those who relief measures that help elderly people or CSSA recipients. For PRH tenants, there is an extra month of rental payment. For elderly people and PWDs, they can get an extra allowance of old age allowance or disability allowance. But when it comes to grassroots, they don't really benefit from the basket of relief measures. You will have to think out of the box. How can you make use of measures to help those who have nothing, the have-nots? Every time when it talks about relief measures, concessions and rates, the same issues crop up. We have to deal with them one by one. There may be some tenants who are waiting for a PRH unit. It's just that you don't have enough PRH units, that they don't get one, and in the end they have to pay rates. Don't be so calcified. You have to think about how to achieve your objectives. Let me remind members that here we're talking about the Rating Exemption Order 2014, not the handing out of goodies from the administration. Perhaps I will take the question first. Well, thank you for the question. When it comes to taking care of grassroots and people from different strata, we have to take into account the overall expenditure of the government. We have to strike a balance. Today, we are here to talk about ratings concessions is one of the many relief measures in the budget. Apart from the one-off relief measures, we also have to take into account the recurrent expenditures. In 2014-15, compared to the year before, the recurrent expenditure is 300 billion. It's an increase of 7.8% compared to the year before, 2013-14. Members talk about focus on grassroots and the have-nots, and this issue has been floated in recent years. When it comes to rates waivers, is practically handing out cash, but I'm just trying to help you see it from a different perspective. There is a basis to charge rates. 3.1 million tenements in Hong Kong are subject to rates. And as a result of this relief measure, they will be exempted from paying rates. Apart from taking care of those in need, We hope to stimulate our economy through these relief measures. Ms. Chan mentioned about how to take care of the have-nots and whether we can give them focused assistance through rates. It may not be as focused. We're talking about assistance to have-nots. It's beyond the scope of rates. I'm only talking about tenants. You have gone beyond that. Just don't be so calcified. This is not a new issue. I know that this has been discussed every year in the past. And when it comes to rates, the administration has been criticized because it benefits people who own a multiple of tenements. And in other words, they are the rich. There are lots of views expressed. Yet, the administration still adopts the same approach. Perhaps it's this most simple approach. Well, you can just impose a limit on the number of flats, say 1 or 2. If you own more than that, you don't get rate waivers over and above that. Every time there is a rates waiver, there are similar voices from the community. When it comes to a limitation on the number of tenements, yes, it's been floated before as to whether we need to impose a limitation on the number of tenements held by a single person. No matter how we do it, there will be controversy. And the second point is a practical one. Sometimes a tenement is owned with someone else or but for someone else. How do you define the owner? Because the tenement may be owned by in his own name with someone or for someone else. It will pose practical difficulties. And if we are to come up with a complicated mechanism, how do we pick and choose which tenement? Is it to be set by the administration, or to wait for a decision after the real ownership is clarified? And this goes beyond the operation of the rating system, because we have to delve into the genuine ownership of a tenant and the relationship between different owners and the tenants. When it comes to one-off relief measures, we have to look at the proportionality. Ms. Chan, if you are minded to deal with that, then the three problems you just outlined do not exist. Say, to give 2, 3, 4 units and not over that. It's just like setting a limit of 1,500. And there will be a lot of questions. Say, why 2 quarters this time? Why not 4? So the problems you've just outlined are not problems. For those who own a multiple of flats, they don't need your help. Just listen to the comments from phone-in programs. Just draw a line. Say it's limited to 2 or 3 units, and if the flat is owned by is owned jointly, let them decide. Let the owners themselves decide. It's a simple matter, and I think sometimes you've wasted money. There are so many hot topics, and we don't have time to discuss this one.
Mr. Lee, check in. Well, let's not talk about the technical issues, but the direction, the principles. I don't know what the government is thinking of. I think you are benefiting the rich more than the poor. As Ms. Sito said, I think the grassroots owners deserve more help. So why don't you allow it and extend it to 4 quarters? Now, if you say there is $1,500 per quarter for 2 quarters, well, you can make it $750 per quarter for 4 quarters. Why can't that be done? Why should you benefit the rich more than the poor? And I think you have another issue. There another solution. All right. You make it $750 per quarter for 4 quarters, and that will be $2.1 billion. And then you can also exclude all commercial premises. As we all know, most owners of commercial premises don't need your help. As for tenants, well, for officers, the cost is over $100,000 per month, and it's pointless to give them any rates concessions. So why don't you exclude all commercial premises and help tenants only? So for residential properties, $750 per quarter for 4 quarters. Even if you can't make it $1,500 per quarter for 4 quarters. I fail to see why you refuse to do it more decently. Why can't you help the lowest sector of property owners, the elderly persons? Now you have your own statistics. Well, in the budget, there is a booklet, and there are 3 categories of rates. The first category paying about $1,200 per quarter. That means many people cannot enjoy your $1,500 concession. Why don't you adjust your arrangements so that the grassroots owners can benefit more? All right, whether it should be spread among 4 quarters or 2 quarters, as I said. This rates concession measure is an expensive measure because it involves many properties. If we spread it among 4 quarters, then the revenue forgone will be an additional $2.12 billion. Of course, for properties with a medium level of rent, well, they can only benefit at most $3,000, whether it should be spread among 2 or 4 quarters. But for those where the rateable value is lower, then they can benefit more, and that's how the extra $2 billion is arrived at. And in this package of one-off relief measures, we've also got a tax rebate and also extra CSSA payments, and all these involve revenue forgone for the government. So when we consider this measure, we have to consider the overall impact on our fiscal measures. And can we exclude all commercial premises? In reality, for about 90% of the properties with rateable value, that is about 1 million of them, are small offices, factory units, and also small shop premises. We hope that this measure can benefit tenants of these properties. We hope that the rates concession can give them fiscal relief. In non-residential premises, about close to 70% of them are paying about $7,000 or more in rent. So we are talking very small shop size. If we lower the ceiling. Now, $750 would involve extra resources. So if we lower the limit, then we will affect these small shops because their rateable value or the rent is higher than that of residential properties. So we want to balance the physical needs of different sectors. I think you have all to say. When we refer to grassroots property owners, you say that we're helping them by means of tax rebates or CSSA payments. And when we talk about commercial premises, you say you want to help owners of small commercial premises. Well, I can also argue that you're giving them a tax rebate because they do pay tax. Since they have already enjoyed a tax rebate, you can exclude them. They may not. They need not be excluded. It's all because you want to save $2 billion. If you don't intend to do it, you don't need to exclude them. Well, they don't really want to argue with us reasonably, so I will turn to another subject. Let's talk about some technical issue, Chairman. If we move an amendment to the order and make it 4 quarters instead of 2 quarters. Well, instead of $1,500, let's turn it to $750. Well, that's another technical issue. Well, if we want to make it 4 instead of 2 quarters, they may say that there's extra $2 billion to the government, but this is not really government expenditure. It just means less tax or less raise received. So technically speaking, this is not expenditure but a reduction in income. Legal advisor, can you tell us, under the so-called charging effect principle of Section 74, in fact, my amendment do not have any charging effect. Now, I may as well just amend the order. I won't argue with you anymore. So, legal advisor, can you please tell us whether it's possible? Legal advisor. Well, Section 31(1) of our ROP, well, if a motion or amendment will have a charging effect on the government, well, that means that will affect the government's income or extra expenditure on part of the government. This is a charging effect. If that's the case, you need the written consent of the CE before you can move such an amendment. Well, looking at rulings, previous rulings of the President, charging effect can mean 2 things. Now, if the amendment would require public money in a material sense to carry out that policy, that is a charging effect. If the amendment will reduce taxes or rates receivable by the government, then it's also charging effect. Of course, finally we have to consider the ruling of the President. But Mr. Lee proposes to make it $750 per quarter for 4 quarters, and according to the administration, that would mean another $2 billion forgone. If we consider previous rulings of the President, this will mean less income for the government, and it will have a charging effect. But here it says it can means money that can be used. This is strange. It seems like that I can use the money to be received, disposed of. If I haven't received it at all, since I have yet to receive it, of course I cannot dispose of it. So I am not really disposing of it. Using the same logic, well, of course I cannot cause the government to receive less. What it's difficult to figure out why the Legislature cannot amend the order to make the government receive less. let's say it plans to spend $6.1 billion on this revenue. Can I make an amendment to make it cost the government exactly $6.1 billion? I fail to understand. Please study. Perhaps you have to explore this more. Now, looking at Mrs. Rita Fan's previous ruling. Now, I have yet to find a ruling about waivers, but in previous rulings, well, it would consider the amount of tax the government was entitled to receive. Using those principles, of course, you can say that we will talk about an increase in tax in the future. Here, we'll talk about a concession. Anyway, if the amendment would cause the government to receive less tax in accordance with the current legislation, then it will have a charging effect. Okay. Since we have yet to encounter this scenario, well, I can tell you for sure that the Labour Party is going to move this amendment subject to the ruling of the President. It would be best if the Labour Party doesn't have to do this. We're of the view that we should not put the rich before the poor. We should help the lowest stratum first. If the government, however, is willing to make this amendment, it will be fine. But if not, we are going to move an amendment nevertheless. Okay, our position is very clear. Mr. Yu Siwing, for companies owning more than one properties, now, I am not for putting a cap on the number of properties they can enjoy the concession, because that would affect SMEs. SMEs also have to pay rates. But spreading the $3,000 among 4 quarters, I think the government should reconsider this point. We have offered rates concessions to property owners in these few years. Yes, this is to show the government's concern for the community. Well, in 2012, the concession was $2,500 per quarter. In 2013, $1,500 per quarter for 4 quarters. So can we keep it? Can we keep the same for this year? $1,500 per quarter for 4 quarters. Can you tell us Can you tell us under this new measure? Well, you will collect rates for 2 quarters. Can you tell us what will be the rates to be received by the government as a result? Because well, in the past years, the waiver was for 4 quarters. Can you do the same for this year so that the community will feel your care?
It saves members having to move amendments because it involves a lot of effort and time. Thank you, Mr. Yu, for its question. Looking back at the past 16 years, that is after the reunification, there are 4 occasions when the administration waive rates for 1 quarter. And when it comes to consideration of the measures, we take into account the situation of that year, the economic outlook, inflation pressure, and financial position. This year, when we consider the measures, it doesn't mean that our position will be the same next year, because every year we look at it independently. Mr. Yu mentions about the concept of the amount collected the extra amount collected. Last year, it was for over 4 quarters, 1,500. So for amount foregone, it's close to $12 billion. Rates concessions has a bigger scope. So we're talking about significant amount of resources. Last year, we had to forego $12 billion. This year is $6.1 billion foregone over 2 quarters. In other words, the administration can receive about $6 billion more compared to last year. So how come that if there is a change of arrangement, then you will have to forego an additional $2.1 billion? Ms. Sitho, I would like to ask the legal advisor. I thank him for telling us about Rule 31, about the disposal of part of revenue. But when it comes to Article 74, it's only about public expenditure. So I'd like to ask, prior to the reunification, we talked about the charging effect, that is, in relation to new taxes. And when it comes to the same issue, we still have flexibility. So is it the case that in relation to Rule 31 or 2, there are some changes? Article 74 of the Basic Law says that there should not be any implication on public expenditure, but revenue is not mentioned. Legal advisor. If you look at Rule 31, bracket 1, that is LN 228 of 2000, which means that it was changed in year 2000, and whether it is in compliance with the Basic Law, I'll have to look into it. Please give us the answer later. Article 74 of the Basic Law says that may introduce bills if they do not relate to public expenditure. Well, I think when it comes to amendments by members, in the end, you need the ruling from the President. You may proceed, but it's for the President to decide whether it breaches the Basic Law or the rule of procedure. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, in the first round. Well, I'm late, but I'd like to ask some questions. I think it's just the figures. How much do you have in mind when it comes to rates foregone? You now talk about 1,500 each quarter for 2 quarters. Well, what if you keep the amount foregone and just juggle the arrangement so that poor people can benefit more? Say that means grassroots ratepayers of smaller flats. If it's spread over 4 quarters, you say there is a difference of $2 billion. Can you change it from 1,500 to 1,200 or 1,000? In this case, then the people from smaller flats will get the most benefit. Can you give us a spreadsheet so that you can maybe design it in a way that has the maximum benefit? I think it's been answered. Well, Mr. Sin just walked in, so I will give a brief answer to supplement. When we consider the ceiling, we have to consider that for each quarter, ratepayers, the rateable value of the tenements of ratepayers. We don't just think about medium flats or small flats, because the rateable value of tenements in different areas of different nature may vary. We now use a ceiling of 1,500. We're talking about a rateable value of 120,000 or a monthly rental of 10,000, all rates will be waived over that quarter. If we're talking about non-residential tenement of affordable value, well, it may still fetch over 10,000 in rental, so we have to strike a balance. Mr. Raymond Chan, a follow-up on Mr. Lee Cheuk-Yen's question. If we can't touch 6.1 billion, we will stick to that. If we want to change it so that it will spread over 4 quarters. Maybe in the end the amount will be 600 or 700. Can you maybe work out the maths for us? We're not asking whether you will agree to it. We just want the figures of the different scenarios. Just give us the spreadsheet. Stick to $6.1 billion using different models over 4 quarters. Ms. Chan, well, we will look into it, but the basic principle is that we have struck a balance before arriving at the 1,500. We've taken into account past measures, and we think that this will benefit the most rates payers. If we use a different ceiling, we will have to work out the different scenarios. We will supply the information, but from our stance, we think this is preferred. We're not asking you whether you agree to it. Just give us the figures, and then we will ask whether we can use the figures to move our amendments. Ms. Chen Yun-Han, the same point. There are basically 2 proposals from members. First, 4 quarters in any event to help rate payers of smaller flats. Bring it down to 750. Because in this way, those who benefit from 1,500 per tenement per quarter for 2 quarters will not stand to lose. And the second point is that set a limit on the number of tenements. There are still small owners in the commercial properties. I'm sure you can strike a balance, and the amount is still 100 million. Or you can stick to 6.1 billion. Just give us the different scenarios. We agree that it should be spread over 4 quarters. Just give us the figures. Of course, it will be for the President to give a ruling. On a number of times in the past, it's because of public expenditure that my amendment could not go ahead, and that was the ruling of Mrs. Fan. We want it to be over 4 quarters, say $700 or so each quarter. You may say, well, there will be a $2.1 billion foregone. Just work it out so that in the end you will still only forego $6.1 billion. Bear in mind that you need to benefit small owners. I want an answer. Well, I'll try to answer the 2 points. First, the number of flats of each rate payer. When it comes to shops or commercial properties, it will be the owners who pay. So tenants themselves will not benefit. We do not differentiate whether the person is an agent, an owner, or a tenant. So it's not distinguishable whether a particular owner holds more than one property. If we have to go ahead with your suggestion, we have to deal with issues of multiple owners, jointly owned properties. because we can't tell how many units is owned by one single owner. Members also suggest spreading it over 4 quarters while adjusting the ceiling. There are many scenarios, but the principle remains simple. If it's over 4 quarters, the measure will cost more. We have to juggle the figures so that the amount of foregone will remain the same. We have to adjust the ceiling. And if that is the case, the impact on rates payers is that those who have to pay more in rates will benefit less. We have to bear in mind assistance to small owners. Rateable value alone cannot reflect the situation, because if you're in a different location, different floor, and of a different nature, the rateable value will be different. If we lower the ceiling, there may still be a significant impact on grassroots. It's illogical. I don't understand what you say. How can you say that it will affect grassroots? They get the benefits over 4 quarters, so they get more out of the 3,000. So how can you say that they don't benefit more? Of course, for those who pay higher in rates, they will not benefit as much. But that is exactly my point. And you only have to design the line and draw it in the right way. Well, give me some figures. For residential tenements, how much are they? And non-residential ones, how much are they? Well, perhaps for properties in commercial buildings, if they are owners, say the line is drawn at $6.1 billion, it can still be $1,500 per quarter. If you exclude non-residential tenements, tenants of commercial buildings or industrial buildings, and if they, although their relatives own residential flats, they will still benefit from the rates. And in this way, conglomerates will not be the biggest party to benefit. So can you tell me the figures? How many of them are residential and how many of them are non-residential? Yes, we can give the information. In Hong Kong, there are 3.1 million properties paying rates, and about 900,000 to 1 million of them are non-residential. And as I've said, these properties may be in shopping malls or they are shops themselves. The rates payers may be the company or the owners themselves. According to a recent survey on conditions of tenancy agreement done by the RVD, most of these tenancy agreements exclude rates. In other words, tenants themselves pay the rates direct or through the owner. So if the concession is done on the basis of a tenement, it will benefit the tenants themselves.
Yes, I understand your logic. But if the tenant can get more rates concession for the residential units, they will still be getting more. So, all right, you take away about 1/3 of the properties. I don't know how much that will cost you. Perhaps just $2.1 billion is just the same. It's neutral. So there are different ways to define the beneficiaries. Well, it's up to you to define the beneficiaries, but the government is not going to accept that. And may I interrupt? I represent SMEs, and I am against these redefinition of beneficiaries. I don't mind spreading the concessions over 4 quarters. That will still be acceptable to SMEs. But if you take away commercial property owners, then I'm afraid SMEs will come out to protest. No, but they can also benefit from concessions for residential properties. Well, it's for you to consider. All right, I will consider this. Well, for those 0.8 to 1 million non-residential properties, I'd like to know how much rates they are paying. That may be around $2.1 billion. Well, they have there are cost implications when they send out letters to rate payers. Well, may I clarify for the record? For non-residential properties, there are about 400,000 of them, not 0.9. I mean, a million. Deputy Secretary should provide the information we seek later, and I have a more specific point to make. All right, if it is $600 per quarter for 4 quarters, what will be the cost? All right, 600, 650, 700, 750 for 4 quarters. Give us the cost implications. I'm sure you will have a computer program to work it out for you. Please run our spreadsheet for us for comparison purpose. And legal advisor, please advise us on the following. Without affecting the total expenditure, can we move an amendment to the order? Please study this legal issue and give us advice. You have to confirm that the amendment is approved by the President. Of course, I know that. Ms. Chen Yuen-Han. I think I was making the same point as Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Show us the cost using different values of concession so that we can know how much the grassroots can benefit. Now, I haven't come to the stage as to whether I'm going to move amendment or not. Ms. Sin Ho. So the Deputy Secretary told us there are about 400,000 odd non-residential properties. So that means 2.7 million residential properties. This is similar to the number of households in Hong Kong. So can the Secretary confirm that I believe you have also covered public housing? We don't have too many vacant private residential units. All right. I'd like to know how much HA and HS, Housing Authority and Housing Society, are getting. These units, I mean, these tenants are only paying $2,000 and the DS said that PRH tenants get 1 month waiver in rent and they may not need to enjoy the full concession amount. But even if you spread the concession over 4 quarters, at most they can only get you $400. But we have to take care of property owners of private units. Now they may be living in tenement buildings over 40 years old and they may only be able to get a waiver of $600 per month. So, Ms. Chen, what are the principles in handing out goodies? I think those who are poor should get more. I don't think you will dare to say that those who are richer should get more. Well, for the elderly property owners who are also poor, they don't have to pay tax at all, so they do not enjoy any tax concession. So I'm talking about the small property owners in the sandwich class and not eligible for PRH. They won't benefit from an extra, they cannot benefit from tax rebate. They will not benefit from 1 month rent free, and they won't they don't get too much under your measure here. Now, if you are of the principle that the poor should get more, please tell us how you can help these poorer property owners to get more. There are about 760,000 PRH units in Hong Kong, and most of them are owned by the housing authority, some by housing society. Well, through these organizations, we give these tenants rates rebate. And I think the amount is about $900 million. Ms. Sit Ho talked about grassroots that do not enjoy any goodies. Well, how can we take care of them through this rates measure? Now, this is after all a one-off relief measure. The target is to provide counter-cyclical stimulus effect when the economy is not very good. And then every year we do make separate judgment of how this measure should be implemented. And I think we should use government recurrent expenditure to offer help to the needy. We have social welfare and education and medical health care. And for this one-off relief measure, I think we should look at it in the wider context. I think we are spending more than $300 billion for on measures to take care of those in need. That is a 7.8% increase over what we did last year. I think the DS spent more than 2 minutes not really answering my question. What she said was irrelevant to my comments. There is still a question to be answered. For one-off relief measures do intend to help the rich or the poor, as pointed out by Mr. Gary Chen. We must agree on the principle first, unless you say that you disagree to this principle. So your intention is to hand out more to luxury flats owners, and those who are poorer, well, you should be satisfied with $15,000. Is that right? Now, if the relief measures should focus on grassroots or the lower stratum of the savage class, then we should put our wisdom together and think of a better way out. Yes, we want to use a comprehensive and a balanced approach to benefit all sectors. We do not target at any particular sector. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, what I'm going to say may not be agreed by all members. Assuming that we leave the SMEs intact, I think there are smaller SMEs, so to speak, and larger SMEs. Right. If it is $1,500 per quarter for 2 quarters, we understand that some owners cannot get the full benefit. Now, if the smaller tenement owners can enjoy the full amount in 4 quarters, then even property owners of larger properties can also claim the full amount. So please discuss with the FS without affecting the total amount of $6.1 billion and without doing anything to SMEs. Please see how you can spread it out. Spread over 4 quarters so that even owners of smaller properties can claim the full amount. Because if it is $1,500 per quarter for 2 quarters, some of the property owners cannot get the full benefit. All right, and also Mr. Sin also asked for different cost implications using different ceilings. We will work out the paper for you later. Then why don't we go into the clause-by-clause scrutiny? Let's wait for their information. I think the crux of the matter is whether the government is going to change the arrangement. If not, we have to vet the clauses anyway. Well, I have done some rough calculations. 3.1 million properties. If we take out the 760,000 public units, that means 2.3 million properties, and $6.1 billion minus $900 million, that is about $5.2 billion. That is, each unit should enjoy about $2,400. I think that tally with our gut feeling. If you spread it over 4 quarters, $750 per quarter for 4 quarters, that will arrive at roughly $6.1 billion. Please work it out. Is administration going to make amendments? Will you accept the members' proposals? Well, I think they are free to answer it or not. They can give you all the information you need for your amendment. We should not drag our feet. Thank you, Chairman, for giving me a chance to respond. In rates relief measures, we always use the rateable value as the basis. We have no intention to make a distinction between the nature of properties. If we want to target a particular sector, we may have to take out some categories of properties. We have no intention to do that because we want to make it fair, because it is just a one-off relief measure. We have no intention to remove a specific kind of properties. So you're not going to move any amendment? All right, then we will continue with our clause-by-clause scrutiny while we await for further information from the administration. Secretary, please. Yes. Please refer to the annex of the paper circulated to members, and that is Rating Exemption Order 2014. The order was made by the Seeing Council under Section 36(2) of the Rating Ordinance Cap 116. Under 36(2) of Cap 112, the Seeing Council may by order declare any class of tenements or parts thereof for any part of Hong Kong to be exempted from the payment of rates wholly or in part. In order to give effect to this one-off relief measure, we have made this order, hoping that the measure can be implemented in the first 2 quarters of 2014, and the order was gazetted on the 26th of February 2014. The first clause, commencement, setting out the commencement date. The order will come into operation on the 1st of April 2014, and that is the first day of the 2014-15 fiscal year.
Clause 2, interpretation. We need to clearly specify the definition of concession period. The concession period refers to the 2 periods of time. First, the first quarter, 1st of April 2014 to 30th of June 2014, both dates inclusive. The second period, the 1st of July 2014 to 30th September 2014, both dates inclusive. Any questions? No, but I would give you a heads up that we will propose amendments, that is the Labour Party. Clause 3. It is in relation to the payment of rates. A tenement included in a valuation list that is in force is exempted from the payment of rates. And in respect of any concession period, it will be by an amount equal to the rates payable for that period or $1,500, whichever is less. The amount of $1,500 is reduced on a pro rata basis if rates are payable for only part of the concession period. The arrangement and the system is the same as that in previous years. Any questions, Ms. Chen Yunhan? So that means you're not going to change your mind. You're not going to change it to, say, $700 over 4 quarters. Is that right? Sorry, speaker's not coming through. Please continue. Is there anything else? So we have concluded the clause by clause. Now, do we need a public hearing? If not, well, this is the end of the scrutiny. Clerk, would you please give us information about the timetable? Well, depending on whether we need another meeting. If not, without an extension, the deadline for the scrutiny of the subleg is the 16th of April, and then the report to the House Committee is the 20th of March, and the deadline for giving notice of amendment is 9th of April. If there is an extension, then it's the 7th of May, which is the expiry of the scrutiny period. The clerk will distribute to you information you seek. Well, if there are no objections, this will be the end, and we will call another meeting if necessary. Ms. Ho, member asked the administration for some figures, and I just gave the rough picture. We're waiting for the detailed information from the administration. If we think it's necessary, we will call another meeting. One more. But I think that even with our amendments, there is no need for an extension. We want it to be done as soon as possible. Well, you can continue with, you can proceed with your amendment even after the report to the House Committee. I don't want it to be like the stamp duty, that there will be, that someone came up with a new amendment and no one had any idea. I want to give you some idea now. That is, without touching the 6.1 billion, we want it to spread over 4 quarters. The other one over to Mr. Lee Chuk-yen. Well, mine is 750 per quarter. So there are 2 proposals, one without touching the 6.1 billion, and the other one is without juggling the figures, and there will be an extra revenue foregone of 2.1 billion. Should we call a meeting to hear from the administration whether they are going to change it, and also get some information about our amendment? According to the administration, they are not going to change it. Okay then. If necessary, after they've given us the information, I will call a meeting after talking to members. We may not need another meeting, even if you want to propose amendments. Well, if they're willing to change, then we need another meeting. Otherwise, we don't need it. Well, thank you, members. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.